The Nintendo Switch changed gaming forever, but it's hard to deny that the handheld hybrid marvel is getting up there in years. Fans are chain-chomping at the bit for a true Switch successor, but will Nintendo ever deliver? When it comes to Nintendo consoles, there are some iconic releases.
We would like to play.
Take the Wii, for example. According to Digital Trends, the console sold over 100 million units, making it the fourth most sold console of all time. Its successor, the Nintendo Switch, has also seen an insane amount of success, and people are starting to wonder what a Switch 2 could look like. One of the biggest rumors about the Switch 2 came from Nate the Hate, a pretty prominent leaker in the gaming community. According to his YouTube video, developer kits were sent to developers early in 2021 from Nintendo for a new type of Switch console. While Nate the Hate goes into detail about what this Switch 2 could look like, he began the episode by pointing out that developers expected the release of a new console to be in 2021. This begged the question of whether or not the Switch OLED could have been that console, or if there's a Switch 2 on the way. Rumors about a Switch 2 are everywhere, but there's plenty of reason to think that Nintendo may never release a second Switch.
Now scram, capiche?
The Nintendo Switch didn't just have the best launch of any Nintendo console ever, its sales have stayed ridiculously high. According to Nintendo Life, the Switch sold 89 million consoles by August 2021, about 3.5 years after it was released. This made it the second highest selling home console for Nintendo in a very short amount of time. If Nintendo decided to develop a Switch 2, it would shorten the lifespan of the original Switch, which means less profit for Nintendo. This decision doesn't make too much sense yet, since the Switch hasn't shown much sign of slowing down. The decision to make a second Switch when the first Switch is still doing incredibly well would also upset a lot of players, especially if the new console is not backwards compatible like Nate the Hate leaked. Then there's the elephant in the room.
Wowie zowie!
That Goomba looks so well then.
The Nintendo Switch OLED model was released in October 2021, and the upgraded version of the Switch needs its time to shine. With a plethora of upgrades, the OLED model gave Nintendo fans a way to experience their favorite games in a better way. While fans were underwhelmed with the Switch OLED announcement, critics thought that the system was a great addition to the Switch family, especially for those looking to use the OLED model as a home system that handles docked and handheld gaming equally well. The Switch OLED will need time to be bought and used by fans and newcomers to the Switch before a Switch 2 could ever be released. Considering Nintendo gave fans a premium version of the Switch over 3 years after the original was released, the OLED model could be around for the long run. It's possible that the OLED model could discourage Nintendo from releasing a total upgrade of the system anytime soon. In a discussion about the possibility of a Switch 2 on Reddit, one user mentioned that most home consoles from Nintendo get one successor in their lifetime. With the release of the OLED model of the Switch could already have this box checked. The OLED model had a lot of upgrades from the original Switch, like a better display, dock, and storage. But is it worth being called a successor? Given the time between releases, it certainly looks like a worthy upgrade. But with no new features really added, it's hard to say for sure whether it should count. However, if it is, it could signal that no Switch 2 is going to come. Then there's the fact that Nintendo has yet to stop pumping out updates to their little console that could. Basically, why release a Switch 2 when Nintendo is still adding features to the Switch? In September, Nintendo fans went wild over an update that allowed users to finally use Bluetooth headphones with the console. While this is one of the biggest features Nintendo added to the Switch after its release, there are still other upgrades the company could make. For example, the Switch has a theme setting that only has 2 basic layouts. Considering the theme shop on the 3DS systems was full of fun, colorful options, that could be something that Nintendo will add later on to keep the system feeling fresh. These quality of life changes are easy software updates, and they would keep the Switch feeling new without the need for a system overhaul. This kind of dedication to the console would make fans happy while also saving Nintendo a ton of money and risk.